Tonight you are here, and that is enough. Wherever you are listening from, let your shoulders drop a little. Let your breath find a slower rhythm. There is no place to be tonight and nothing more to do. We are simply going to drift very slowly into the great blue ocean and meet its largest, gentlest residents. This is the Circadian Institute, where each night we travel somewhere ancient and quiet, somewhere too patient for the rush of the day, and let the slow rhythms of the natural world carry our minds toward sleep. Tonight, our destination is the world of whales, the largest creatures ever to have lived on this planet. If you find this calming voice helpful, please subscribe. It is the simplest way to keep these long nights of rest within reach. A whale is a creature of two worlds. It breathes air, it gives birth to live young, it nurses its calves with milk, yet it spends its entire life in the ocean. Whales are mammals, distant cousins of cows and hippos who chose very long ago to return to the sea. Tonight we will travel slowly through their quiet lives. The lineage of whales reaches back more than 50 million years. Their ancestors once walked on land on four legs near the shores of an ancient sea. Over countless generations, those ancestors slipped further into the water until their bodies became the smooth, streamlined forms we know today. The bones of legs are still inside them, hidden like memories of an older world. Some whales sleep with only half their brain at a time. The other half stays alert, keeping the body breathing, keeping the eyes open enough to watch for danger. Then the halves trade. They drift in this way at the surface, in slow circles, while the world rolls around them. It is a gentler kind of sleep, but a sleep nonetheless. Tonight we will visit many kinds of whales. The blue whales, larger than any dinosaur. The humpbacks who sing across whole oceans. The sperm whales who dive into the deepest darkness. The orcas who travel in close family pods. Each will be told as gently as it deserves, with no urgency, no raised voice, no demand on your attention. If your mind drifts during this video, that is welcome. You do not need to follow every detail. The voice will keep going. The ocean will keep moving in its slow tides. The whales will keep being patient. You are allowed to fall asleep early. You are allowed to stay awake and watch. There is no wrong way to be here tonight. So let yourself settle in. Soften your breathing. The deep ocean has been waiting for a long time, and it is ready to receive you. We will begin by drifting outward, away from the shore, past the shallow reefs, past the sunlit blue, down into the open sea, where the great whales live their slow, ancient lives. Let us begin with the simplest possible description. A whale is a mammal that lives entirely in the ocean. It breathes air through a hole on the top of its head. It bears its young alive, feeds them milk, and protects them as any mammal does. The only thing that sets it apart is that the sea, not the land, has become its home. The group of mammals to which whales belong is called Cetacea. The word comes from an old Greek term meaning sea monster. There are more than 90 species of cetaceans alive today. They include the great whales, the dolphins, and the porpoises. Despite their differences in size and habit, all share a common ancient origin in the sea. The largest of all whales And the largest animal ever known to have lived is the blue whale. An adult blue whale can reach 30 meters in length and weigh more than 170 tons. That is heavier than the largest dinosaurs. Its tongue alone can weigh as much as an elephant. Its heart is the size of a small car. The sperm whale is the largest of the toothed whales. Males can reach 20 meters and weigh up to 57 tons. They have the largest brain of any animal that has ever lived, 5 times the mass of a human brain. The shape of their head is unmistakable, a vast block of organ tissue called the spermaceti, which they use to focus their hunting clicks. Humpback whales reach about 16 meters in length. They are known for their long, white-edged pectoral fins, which can extend a third of the length of the body. They are also famous for their breaches, full-body leaps from the water that sometimes lift their 15-ton bodies entirely into the air. The reason for breaching is still partly a mystery to science. Fin whales are the second largest animal on Earth after the blue whale. They can reach 26 meters and weigh 70 tons. Despite their size, fin whales are among the fastest of the great whales. They can sustain speeds of 40 kilometers per hour for long periods. Sailors once called them the greyhounds of the sea. Gray whales are slightly smaller, reaching about 14 meters. They have a mottled gray skin that often hosts colonies of barnacles. They make one of the longest migrations of any mammal, traveling between feeding grounds in the Arctic and breeding lagoons along the warmer coasts. We will visit their journey in more depth later tonight. Minke whales are the smallest of the great baleen whales, reaching about 10 meters. They are widespread across the world's oceans. Sei whales are slightly larger, around 18 meters, and prefer the deep open ocean. The bride's whales live mostly in tropical and subtropical waters, often near the coast. Each species has its own range, its own preferences, its own quiet rhythm. The bowhead whales live only in the Arctic. They are powerful, with skulls strong enough to break through sea ice for breathing. They can reach 20 meters and live longer than almost any other mammal. Some bowheads have been documented at over 200 years old. They sing complex songs beneath the polar ice all winter long. Right whales are heavy-bodied baleen whales with no dorsal fin. There are 3 species: the North Atlantic, the North Pacific, and the southern right whale. They got their unfortunate name because whalers considered them the right whales to hunt. Today, the North Atlantic right whale is critically endangered, with fewer than 400 individuals remaining. The beluga whales are pale white, small, and remarkably social. They live in Arctic and subarctic waters and are sometimes called the canaries of the sea because of their varied vocalizations, chirps, whistles, clicks, and what almost sound like words. They have flexible necks and expressive faces, very unusual among whales. Narwhals are deep-water Arctic whales, famous for the long spiraled tusk that grows from the head of the males. The tusk is in fact a single greatly elongated tooth, sometimes nearly 3 meters long. For centuries it was sold in Europe as a unicorn horn. Its actual purpose is still debated, perhaps a sensory organ, perhaps a display, perhaps both. Orcas, also called killer whales, are the largest members of the dolphin family. They are powerful predators, but their social lives are remarkably complex. They live in tight family groups, with each pod having its own dialect of vocalizations and its own hunting traditions passed down across generations. There are many species of dolphins. The bottlenose dolphin is the most familiar. There are also spinner dolphins, common dolphins, dusky dolphins, Risso's dolphins, and many more. Some live in the open sea, some near the coast, some in rivers. Despite their smaller size, dolphins are technically toothed whales, true cetaceans by every measure. Porpoises are smaller still. They look like dolphins but have rounder heads, shorter beaks, and triangular dorsal fins. There are 6 species of porpoises. The vaquita, found only in the Gulf of California, is the smallest cetacean and now the most endangered. Fewer than 10 individuals are thought to remain in the wild. As the early whales returned to the sea, their bodies changed. Their nostrils migrated from the snout to the top of the head. Their hind legs disappeared, leaving only small bones inside the body. Their tails grew flukes, flat, horizontal paddles that drive them through the water. Their skin became smooth, hairless, marked with the scars of a long life at sea. A whale's blowhole is a marvel of biological engineering. It opens consciously when the whale surfaces. It seals shut when the whale dives. The blow itself, the visible spout, is not water, but warm, moist breath condensing in cool air. Each species has a slightly different shape of blow recognizable to whale watchers and biologists. A whale's lungs are highly efficient. With each breath, a whale exchanges as much as 90% of the air in its lungs, far more than the 15% that humans manage in normal breathing. This allows whales to dive long and deep, holding their breath for many minutes, sometimes for more than an hour without distress. A whale's body temperature is similar to ours, about 37 degrees Celsius. To stay warm in cold water, whales rely on a thick layer of blubber. In some species, this layer can be more than 50 centimeters thick. Beneath the blubber, the body is regulated by a network of fine blood vessels that conserve heat and only release it where needed. The size differences among whales are remarkable. The smallest dolphin, Maui's dolphin, weighs about 50 kilograms. The largest, the blue whale, weighs more than 3,000 times as much, yet they are all part of the same evolutionary family. The cetacea, the children of the same ancient land mammal that walked long ago into the sea. The tail of a whale is its primary engine. Unlike fish, whose tails move side to side, whale tails, the flukes, move up and down. This vertical motion is more efficient for propelling a large body. Each fluke is unique in pattern, scarring, and shape. Researchers identify individual whales by photographing the underside of the tail. Many whales have a dorsal fin on the back. Its function is partly stability, partly thermoregulation. Each species has a characteristic shape of fin. The killer whale's tall, straight dorsal fin can reach nearly 2 meters in adult males. The blue whale's small, curved dorsal fin sits far back on the body. The right whale has no dorsal fin at all. Whales also have flippers, the front limbs modified into paddles. Inside each flipper, The bones of the original land mammal hand are still preserved. The upper arm, the forearm, the wrist, and even tiny finger bones. The flippers are used for steering, balance, and sometimes for stroking and play with other whales. Yeah, that is what a whale is. A mammal who chose the sea, a breath taken from above, a body shaped by the deep. A creature with our own ancient heritage who took a different path long ago. Tonight we will travel slowly through their world. Let us go a little deeper now into the long story of how they came to be. To understand whales, we must travel back, very far back in time. Around 50 million years ago, the world was warmer than today. The continents were in different positions. India had not yet collided with Asia. The shorelines were dotted with shallow seas full of fish, of crustaceans, of creatures that have long since vanished. Among the land animals living near these shores was a small, four-legged, hoofed creature. This creature has been given the name Pakicetus. It looked nothing like a modern whale. It was about the size of a large dog. It had 4 slender legs, a long tail, and a slightly elongated snout. Its eyes were placed high on its skull, yet inside its inner ear, fossils show there were already certain features that would only later make sense in a marine animal. Pakicetus probably waded into the shallow sea to catch fish. Over generations, the descendants of these waders began spending more time in the water. Their legs grew shorter and more paddle-like. Their tails became more useful for swimming. Their bodies elongated. They were no longer fully terrestrial, but not yet fully marine, somewhere quietly between. Around 45 million years ago, descendants like Ambulocetus appeared. The name means walking whale. They could still walk on land, but spent most of their lives in shallow water, ambushing prey from the edges. Their hind legs were powerful and webbed, like those of modern otters. They were the missing link between land and sea, fossilized in the rocks of what is now Pakistan. By 40 million years ago, a creature called Rhodhocetus had emerged. It looked more whale-like. Its body was longer, its tail more developed, its hind legs reduced. It still had a pelvis, but the pelvis no longer connected fully to its spine. It could swim with strong undulations of its body, but it could no longer walk well on land. The transition was nearly complete. By 35 million years ago, the early whales had become fully aquatic. Basilosaurus, despite its name meaning king lizard, was actually a true whale, 20 meters long, with a snake-like body and tiny vestigial hind legs. Dorodon was smaller, more dolphin-shaped. From these early forms, the modern whale lineages eventually emerged. The split between toothed whales and baleen whales happened around 34 million years ago. From that point onward, the two branches followed their own paths. The toothed whales developed echolocation, the ability to navigate and hunt by sound. The baleen whales developed their elaborate filter-feeding plates and their immense body sizes. Echolocation is a remarkable adaptation. A whale produces high-frequency clicks from a structure in its forehead called the melon. The clicks travel out, bounce off objects, and return as echoes. The whale interprets these echoes through its lower jaw, which is full of fat tissue and connects to the inner ear. In darkness or muddy water, a whale can build a mental image of its surroundings entirely from sound. Baleen evolved to filter the rich, fine soup of small creatures that lived in the cooler oceans. As the polar regions cooled and ocean currents shifted, the seas became densely populated with krill, copepods, and small fish. The baleen whales who could feast on these creatures had a steady food supply, and they grew larger over time until they reached the giant sizes we know today. As whales evolved, their senses also changed. The sense of smell, important on land, was gradually lost. The eyes adjusted to underwater vision with a wide field of view. The sense of touch on the skin remained, especially around the head and flukes. But by far the most powerful sense in toothed whales became hearing, and the ability to interpret sound is now central to their lives. The earliest whales had teeth that varied in shape, like those of land mammals. As baleen whales evolved, their teeth disappeared during fetal development, replaced by the keratin plates of baleen. Toothed whales kept their teeth, but the teeth became simpler, often peg-like, sometimes specialized. Some species, like the narwhal, have only a single tusk-like tooth in their entire jaw. The whales that survived the great earth changes of the past tens of millions of years were the ones whose ancestors had been most flexible, most adaptable. Other groups of marine mammals, like the early sea cows or various extinct toothed whales, did not survive. The cetaceans that remain are the descendants of survivors, of long, quiet lineages that endured ice ages, mass extinctions, and the slow shifting of continents. During the past 5 million years, more recent whale species emerged: the blue whale, the humpback, the fin whale, the gray whale, and many others took on the forms we recognize today. These are relatively young species, geologically speaking. They are still adapting, still evolving in subtle ways with each generation. The connection of whales to other mammals is sometimes startling to learn. Their closest living relatives on land are the hippopotamuses. The two groups share a common ancestor that lived around 54 million years ago. The hippo and the whale are different in almost every visible way, yet their inner anatomy and genetics confirm the kinship. But looking at a hippopotamus and a blue whale today, the relationship seems impossible. But evolution operates over time, spans the human mind cannot easily grasp. 50 million years is more than 10,000 times longer than all of recorded human history. In that span, almost any transformation becomes possible, given enough small changes accumulating over countless generations. The whales we see today retain traces of their land-dwelling past. Inside many whale species, small bones float embedded in the body, completely disconnected from the spine. These are the remnants of a pelvis. They are not used. They serve no current function. They are simply the quiet memory of a four-legged ancestor who once walked along an ancient shore. The flukes of a whale's tail evolved from the elongated tail of its ancestors. The flukes themselves contain no bones. They are made of fibrous connective tissue and skin. They are powered by huge muscle groups along the back and flanks of the whale. With each downstroke and upstroke, they push the body forward through the water in a smooth, undulating motion. The flippers of a whale, by contrast, do contain bones. Inside the smooth paddle, you would find a recognizable skeleton, the upper arm, the forearm, the wrist, and even the digits. The bones look almost identical to the bones of a human hand, just modified for swimming. They are a clear inheritance from the ancestral mammals who walked on land. Whales also retain a unique sleep pattern that may have evolved gradually as they spent more time in water. Most whales sleep with one half of their brain at a time, the other half remaining alert. They drift quietly at the surface, eyes half open, breathing as needed. This unihemispheric sleep is also found in dolphins, in some seals, and in certain birds. But modern genetic studies have allowed scientists to trace the relationships among cetaceans with great precision. The genes of whales, dolphins, and porpoises have been sequenced and compared. Family trees have been built, refined, and updated. A story they tell is consistent with the fossil record. A single ancient lineage, branching and rebranching across millions of years into the diverse cetaceans we know today. In some sense, every whale alive today is a living fossil. Each carries within it a body plan that has been refined over 50 million years. Each carries inner anatomy traceable to a creature that once stood on 4 legs. Each carries genes that were copied with small variations from generation to generation across an unbroken thread of life. And there are still mysteries. Some lineages of cetaceans are not fully understood. River dolphins, for example, may have evolved their freshwater lifestyles separately in different parts of the world. Some sperm whale relatives have left only fragmentary fossils. The full family tree of whales, like every family tree, has gaps and uncertainties, silences that science is still slowly filling in. Sometimes a new fossil is found that fills in a missing piece. A cliff in Egypt yields the bones of a previously unknown ancient whale. A riverbed in Pakistan reveals an early walking cetacean. The story keeps growing more complete, more nuanced. Each discovery enriches the tale of how a small 4-legged mammal became the largest creatures the planet has ever known. From land to sea, that is the journey. It took 50 million years. It involved countless individual lives, each born, each surviving, each reproducing, each dying. None of those individuals knew what they were part of. Each was simply a creature trying to live, trying to feed, trying to raise its young. The grand pattern emerges only when seen from far above, with the long perspective of geological time. That is the long journey from land to sea. A small hoofed creature stepped into the shallows. Its descendants stayed, their bodies changed, their lungs deepened, their tails widened, their legs vanished, their songs filled the dark. And eventually, they became the great whales who travel the oceans tonight, beneath the same patient stars that watched the very first waiting ancestors at the edge of an ancient sea. Tonight, when a whale rises to breathe, it is breathing the same way its ancestors began to breathe long ago, the slow, deep gulp of air at the boundary of 2 worlds. The ocean below, the sky above, the hot lungs in between. It is one of the oldest acts in the cetacean lineage. Many whales travel enormous distances each year. Their migrations are among the longest of any mammal on Earth. Some species move between feeding grounds in the cold, productive polar seas and breeding grounds in the warm, tropical waters near the equator. The journeys are made on internal schedules, repeated year after year, generation after generation. Gray whales make one of the longest migrations of any mammal. Each year they travel between the cold-feeding waters of the Arctic, the Bering and Chukchi Seas, and the warm breeding lagoons of Mexico's Baja California. The total round trip can exceed 20,000 kilometers. They follow the same coastal routes their ancestors traveled year after year. Gray whales travel close to shore at speeds of around 8 kilometers per hour. They swim almost continuously day and night. Mothers give birth in the shallow lagoons of Mexico. Calves nurse for several months, growing rapidly on their mother's rich milk. Then in spring, the family begins the long northward journey back to the productive Arctic waters. The humpback whale also makes great migrations, but in many regional patterns rather than one. Different humpback populations follow different routes. North Atlantic humpbacks summer in the cold seas off Iceland, Greenland, and Norway, then winter in the warm Caribbean. North Pacific humpbacks summer off Alaska and California, then winter in Hawaii or Mexico. Southern Hemisphere humpbacks have their own migrations. They feed in the cold Antarctic waters during the southern summer, then travel north to breed off the coasts of Australia, South Africa, Madagascar, or South America. The two hemispheres almost never mix. The schedules are reversed. The two great population groups remain separate, ancient, distinct. The blue whale's migrations are less predictable. Some blue whales travel between cold feeding waters and warm breeding waters like other species. Others seem to follow the food itself, moving wherever krill is most abundant in patterns that vary year to year. Tracking studies have shown that some blue whales spend their entire lives in particular regions, while others wander vast oceanic distances. The North Atlantic right whale makes shorter migrations. It moves between feeding grounds off New England and Canada and calving grounds off Florida and Georgia. The journey is around 2,000 kilometers each way. The animals travel close to shore, where they sometimes encounter shipping traffic, a dangerous problem that conservation efforts are working to address. The bowhead whales, who live only in Arctic waters, do not migrate to warmer seas. Instead, they move with the seasonal advance and retreat of the sea ice. In summer, they follow the receding ice northward into the high Arctic. In winter, they retreat as the ice expands south. Their entire lives unfold within the cold polar realm. Fin whales travel widely across the world's oceans. They are deep-sea wanderers, less coastal than humpbacks or right whales. Some fin whales have been tracked moving thousands of kilometers across the open ocean, following food rather than fixed routes. Their migrations are more like long drifting wanderings than tight scheduled journeys. Sperm whales also wander the deep oceans. Adult males roam alone or in small bachelor groups, often traveling toward polar waters. Females and young live in family pods in tropical and temperate waters, moving in slower, more regional patterns. The males return periodically to mate, then leave again on their solitary travels. Orcas have many population types, each with its own movements. Some, called residents, stay year-round in particular regions and feed on local fish populations. Others, called transients, travel widely and hunt other marine mammals. Still others, called offshore, move across deep ocean. Each lineage has its own range, its own traditions, its own slow rhythm. How do whales navigate during these vast journeys? Several mechanisms are believed to be at work. Whales can sense Earth's magnetic field, possibly through magnetite particles in their tissues. They use the position of the sun and stars. They follow ocean currents and temperature gradients. They listen to the soundscape, distant coastlines, distant whales, distant storms. Some whales also seem to remember specific routes through generations. Calves learn migration paths by traveling with their mothers. Mothers learn from their own mothers. The knowledge of where to go, when to leave, and which path to follow is passed down through countless generations as a kind of cetacean cultural inheritance. The reasons for migration are partly nutritional. The cold polar waters are rich in food during the summer months. Krill, copepods, fish, whales feed intensively, building up fat reserves. The warm tropical waters offer little food, but are safer for newborn calves, which would lose body heat too quickly in cold seas. Migration is a balance between these two needs. Migrations are energetically costly. A blue whale may travel 10,000 kilometers a year while consuming little or no food. To survive, the whale must accumulate enormous fat reserves during its feeding season, often gaining tens of tons of body weight in a few short months. The fat is then slowly burned during the long migration and breeding period. During migration, whales often follow well-known oceanic landmarks. Underwater seamounts, deep canyons, ridges, and currents serve as guides. Some whales follow coastlines closely, others travel through the open sea using less obvious cues. Each species, each population has its own preferences, its own learned routes. Some whales return to the very places where they were born. Female humpbacks tend to give birth in the same lagoons where their mothers gave birth to them. This faithfulness to traditional sites passes from generation to generation. The connection between a whale and a particular bay or coast can stretch unbroken across centuries. During migration, whales sometimes pass through dangerous places. Ship strikes are a serious threat, especially in busy coastal regions. Entanglement in fishing gear is another. Plastic pollution, ocean noise, and climate-driven shifts in food availability all add to the difficulties. Modern conservation efforts try to ease these risks along well-known migration routes. Researchers track whale migrations by photo identification, by satellite tags, and by listening to whale calls along acoustic monitoring stations. The information has revealed that no two whales migrate exactly the same way. Each individual has small preferences, small variations. Within the species pattern, there is room for personal choice. Some humpback whales have been recorded crossing entire ocean basins. One famous individual, known as a humpback that travels alone, was tracked moving from the coast of South America to the waters of Madagascar, more than 9,000 kilometers, in a single migration. Such long journeys reveal how vast the oceanic homes of these creatures truly are. Migrating whales move through different temperatures, different ecosystems, different soundscapes. The journey itself is a kind of meditation, a slow shift between worlds, from cold green seas full of food to warm blue waters full of song, from the noise of feeding congregations to the quieter, slower waters of the calving grounds. Whales sometimes migrate in groups, sometimes alone. Some species form long, loose lines. Others travel in tight pods. Mothers travel with calves. Older males may travel solo. The patterns vary by species and by individual. There is no single template for how a whale crosses the world's oceans. During their migrations, whales sometimes pass each other. A blue whale heading north may swim within sight of a humpback heading south. Different species share the great ocean roads, each on its own schedule, each toward its own destination. The vast ocean has room for all of these slow, ancient journeys. And the migrations have been happening for a very long time. Bones of ancient gray whales have been found along coasts that are no longer visited today. Migration patterns have shifted as climates have shifted. Some routes that were once busy are now quiet. Some that are now active emerged in recent millennia. The patterns evolve slowly with the world. In every migration, there is a return. The whale that left in spring will, if it survives, return next winter. The lagoon that was empty will fill again with mothers and calves. The cold feeding sea will quiet during the off-season, then come alive again with renewed song and breath. The patterns repeat with slight variations across the long span of cetacean history. That is the Great Migration. Thousands of kilometers repeated year after year, generation after generation. Whales crossing oceans the way you and I might cross a field, following ancient routes, navigating by means we still do not fully understand, returning to the places that have welcomed their ancestors for as long as the species has existed. Some whales sing. The most famous singer is the humpback whale. Male humpbacks produce long, complex songs that can last 20 minutes or more, and they repeat these songs for hours, even days. The songs are not random. They have structure with phrases, themes, and patterns that change in predictable ways. Each song begins with a particular phrase. The phrase is repeated several times to form a theme. Several themes form a song. The whales sing in a fixed sequence, the same themes in the same order. They do not sing them randomly. The structure has been called musical, mathematical, even linguistic in some sense. Within a single ocean basin, all the singing humpbacks tend to sing roughly the same song at the same time. Then slowly the song begins to change. New phrases enter, old ones drop out. Within a year or two, the song has become noticeably different. All the singers in the population follow the change together, as if they were learning from each other. Sometimes a song from one ocean is carried by a wandering male to a new ocean. The whales there hear the new song and begin to incorporate parts of it into their own. Within a few years, the new song spreads throughout the new population. cultural transmission of song among humpbacks has been observed across thousands of kilometers of sea. But why do humpbacks sing? The most likely reason is sexual. Songs are believed to be a way for males to advertise themselves to females or to compete with other males. Singing males float head down at moderate depth, suspended in the water, producing the sound from their lungs. The songs are loudest during the breeding season in tropical waters. A humpback song carries far. The lower frequencies in the range of 20 to 200 hertz can travel hundreds of kilometers underwater before fading. A whale singing in one part of the ocean may be heard by another whale far across the sea. The deep ocean is, for cetaceans, a vast acoustic theater. Blue whales also produce sound, though their calls are simpler than humpback songs. They emit deep, low-frequency moans, sometimes below the range of human hearing. These calls can travel even farther than humpback songs across entire ocean basins in the right conditions. Blue whale calls are among the loudest sounds produced by any animal. The sound of a blue whale call has a distinctive low, bass-like quality. To human ears, it can sound like a slow groan or moan, sometimes described as the heartbeat of the ocean. Different blue whale populations around the world produce slightly different calls, distinguishable to researchers as Eastern Pacific, Antarctic, Indian Ocean, and other regional dialects. Fin whales also produce powerful low-frequency calls. Their pulses are short and rhythmic, repeating in long sequences. The pulses can travel across hundreds of kilometers of ocean. In some cases, fin whale calls are so distinctive that researchers can track individual whales by their unique acoustic signatures, like fingerprints made of sound. Bowhead whales sing year-round, even beneath the polar ice in the depths of winter. Their songs are diverse, some short, some long, some simple, some elaborate. Hundreds of distinct song types have been recorded from a single population. The bowhead seems to be one of the most musically varied of all the whales. Right whales make distinctive calls, moose, gunshots, and tonal notes. Their vocal repertoire is more limited than that of humpbacks or bowheads. They communicate over moderate distances. Mother right whales and their calves stay in close contact, often using soft, intimate calls that travel only a short way. Toothed whales, sperm whales, dolphins, orcas, narwhals communicate in a different way. They produce clicks, whistles, and what are called pulsed calls. The clicks are used both for communication and for echolocation, the sonar by which they navigate and hunt. Their calls are higher in frequency, sharper, and more rapid than the songs of baleen whales. Each pod of orcas has its own dialect of pulsed calls. Resident pods in the eastern North Pacific have been studied for decades, and their dialects are remarkably stable. The same calls are used by the same families across multiple generations. A young orca learns its pod's specific dialect from its mother and elders. Sperm whales communicate in patterns called codos, short bursts of clicks organized in distinctive rhythms. Different sperm whale clans, even in the same ocean, use different codos. A whale traveling between clans can recognize the dialect of a stranger immediately. Sperm whale culture, transmitted through coda dialects, is one of the most thoroughly studied non-human cultural systems. The dolphins use signature whistles, Each individual dolphin develops its own unique whistle, used like a name. When dolphins meet, they often exchange signature whistles to identify themselves. Mothers teach their calves a signature whistle in the first months of life. The whistle stays with the dolphin for the rest of its life. Whale calls travel differently than sound in air. Underwater, sound moves more than 4 times faster than in air. Low frequencies travel especially well, sometimes for thousands of kilometers in deep ocean sound channels. The deep ocean has natural sound corridors, called SOFAR channels, where low-frequency sound is trapped and carried with little loss. In the SOFAR channel, a sound can be carried halfway around the world. Some researchers have argued that whales use these channels for very long-distance communication. A whale calling in the Southern Ocean might, in theory, be heard by another whale near the equator. The full extent of this long-range cetacean communication is still not understood. Whale calls have been heard by humans for centuries. Sailors aboard wooden ships sometimes felt the hull vibrate with the deep low pulses of fin whales. Submarine sonar operators in the early 20th century recorded mysterious sounds that were later identified as whale calls. The science of whale acoustics began in earnest only in the 1960s, when humpback songs were first systematically recorded. In 1970, biologists released an album titled Songs of the Humpback Whale. The recording reached millions of listeners and helped change public perception of whales. Until then, many people thought of whales as huge, slow, simple creatures. The songs revealed something else: complexity, sensitivity, perhaps even something that could be called musicality. After the public release of humpback recordings, scientific interest in whale acoustics grew rapidly. Hydrophones, underwater microphones, were deployed in many oceans. Long-term recordings revealed seasonal patterns, regional dialects, gradual song evolution. Whales were no longer silent giants. They were creatures with their own complex acoustic worlds. The cultural transmission of song in humpbacks is now considered one of the clearest examples of cultural learning in non-human animals. The songs change, the changes spread. The whales appear to learn from each other, copying new patterns, adopting innovations. It is a kind of slow musical evolution written in sound in oceans across years. Some whale calls have been recorded that no one can identify. Mysterious low-frequency moans rise from unknown depths. A signal known only as the bloop has been recorded in the South Pacific. A particular pattern of calls in the North Pacific, sometimes called the 52 Hz whale, has been heard for decades but never traced to a known species. Quote, "Whether these are species we have not yet recognized or unusual individuals remains uncertain." The deep ocean, beneath the noise of ships and weather, is full of song and call. Some calls are at frequencies our ears cannot directly detect. Some are slow, lasting many seconds. Some are rapid, like a string of pearls of sound. Together they form an immense, continuous, layered acoustic world that has been singing for tens of millions of years. Modern human activity has added new sounds to the ocean. Engine noise, sonar, seismic surveys for oil and gas. These sounds can interfere with whale communication, mask their calls, even cause stress and injury. Quiet seas have become rarer in recent decades. Conservation now includes efforts to reduce ocean noise, especially in areas where whales rely on long-distance communication. Despite the new noise, the songs continue. Whales adapt their calls, singing louder or shifting frequencies or pausing during periods of high noise. The ancient acoustic rhythms persist even if they have to compete with new ones. The songs of the sea are deeper, more layered, and more continuous than any music humans have ever made. Listening to whale songs is to hear something very old. The basic forms have probably been sung with variations for hundreds of thousands of years. Long before humans existed, the deep oceans were already filled with these slow, layered, changing songs. They are some of the oldest, most continuous music on Earth. That is the song of the sea. Slow, vast, layered, evolving, sung in patterns we are only beginning to understand, carried across enormous distances, passed from generation to generation. Listening to it, we hear a small part of a much larger acoustic world that has been here much longer than us. Some whales dive deeper than any other air-breathing creature on Earth. The sperm whale, in particular, can descend more than 2,000 meters below the surface and remain there for over an hour, hunting in total darkness. The depth and duration are extraordinary feats of physiology, the result of 50 million years of evolution toward life in the deep. To dive deep, a whale's body must adjust to enormous pressure. At 2,000 meters, the pressure is more than 200 atmospheres, 200 times the air pressure at sea level. Such pressure would crush most creatures instantly. Whale bodies are built to withstand it through a series of remarkable adaptations. Before diving, a whale takes a final breath at the surface. As it descends, the lungs collapse under increasing pressure. The air is forced out of the alveoli, the small lung sacs, and into the bronchial passages where it cannot enter the bloodstream. This prevents nitrogen from accumulating in the blood, which would otherwise cause decompression sickness on ascent. During the dive, the whale's heart rate slows dramatically. From around 50 beats per minute at the surface, the rate drops to 10 or even 4 beats per minute at depth. Blood flow is restricted to the most essential organs, the brain, the heart, the muscles needed for swimming. The whale's body becomes a kind of slow, conserved machine, operating with the bare minimum of oxygen. The whale's muscles store oxygen using a substance called myoglobin. Myoglobin is similar to hemoglobin in blood, but it sits inside muscle tissue. Whale muscles contain 10 times more myoglobin than human muscles do. This stored oxygen sustains the whale during the long minutes between breaths. The blood of diving whales is also remarkable. They have a higher concentration of red blood cells, and their blood holds more oxygen than human blood. They can also tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide and lower levels of oxygen without distress. Many physiological tolerances that would be dangerous to humans are normal for diving whales. The sperm whale's massive head holds a unique structure, the spermaceti organ. This is a vast volume of waxy oil contained in a sac at the top of the head. As the whale dives, water cools the spermaceti, increasing its density and helping the whale sink. As the whale rises, the spermaceti warms, decreases density, and helps the whale rise. In addition to buoyancy control, the spermaceti organ is part of the whale's echolocation system. Clicks produced in the head are focused through the spermaceti and projected forward into the water. The echoes return through the lower jaw. The system allows the whale to detect prey, terrain, and other whales in complete darkness. Sperm whales hunt giant squid in the deep ocean. The squid live at depths of 1 to 2,000 meters in waters where no sunlight reaches. The two creatures sometimes engage in extended battles, leaving scars on the whale's skin from the squid's beak and tentacles. These scars are visible on most adult sperm whales as circular and curved marks across the head and back. Beaked whales are the most extreme divers. Some species, like Cuvier's beaked whale, have been recorded diving to nearly 3,000 meters and remaining underwater for over 3 hours. They are mid-sized whales, less famous than blue or sperm whales, but they may be the deepest, most extreme divers in the entire animal kingdom. Beaked whales are difficult to study because they live in the deep open ocean and rarely come near land. They are often observed only briefly at the surface between long, deep dives. Their behavior is still partly mysterious. New species are occasionally discovered. Old questions about their lives remain unanswered. Other whales dive less deep, but still make remarkable descents. Pilot whales hunt at depths of around 600 meters. Bottlenose dolphins, despite their coastal reputation, can dive deeper than 500 meters in some populations. Even the calm-looking gray whale, who feeds in shallow water, can dive deep when needed. Baleen whales generally do not dive as deep as toothed whales. They feed near the surface or in mid-water where their prey concentrates. Blue whales feed at depths of around 1 to 200 meters, lunge feeding through dense krill swarms. Humpbacks feed near the surface, often cooperating with other humpbacks in elaborate bubble net patterns. Despite the differences in diving depth, all whales share the basic physiology of breath-holding mammals. Their bodies are built to maximize the use of every breath. Their hearts slow, their blood concentrates, their muscles burn oxygen carefully. Each dive is a small expedition into a part of the ocean that air-breathing creatures cannot easily reach. In the deep ocean, the whale enters a different world. Below 200 meters, the sunlight fades to twilight. Below 500, it grows dark. Below 1,000, total darkness, except for the occasional bioluminescent flash from deep-sea creatures. The water is cold around 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. The pressure is immense. The silence is profound. In this dark, cold, high-pressure realm, the whale hunts. The clicks of the sperm whale echo off prey and surroundings. The whale is mapping its world by sound alone. Its body, slow and conserving, glides through the deep waters with minimal energy expenditure. Each hunt may bring back a meal of squid, octopus, or deep-sea fish. After the dive, the whale rises slowly. It cannot ascend too quickly without risking injury. The lungs gradually re-expand. The heart rate increases. The blood begins flowing freely again As the whale approaches the surface, the body returns to its normal active state. At the surface, it takes several long breaths, recharging its oxygen stores for the next dive. Whales often dive in cycles. A sperm whale may dive for 60 to 90 minutes, then surface for 10 to 15 minutes of breathing, then dive again. The cycle continues for hours, then days. The whale lives much of its life in this rhythm, long deep periods below, short periods at the bright boundary of two worlds. Whale physiology has inspired human medical research. Studies of how whale brains tolerate low oxygen during dives have informed research on stroke and heart attack recovery in humans. Studies of how whale blood manages dissolved gases have informed scuba diving safety. The deep diving cetaceans are quiet teachers, hidden in the dark waters far below. Some species can dive for entire seasons of life. Bowhead whales spend much of the polar winter beneath thick sea ice, surfacing only at occasional cracks. Their lungs and oxygen reserves let them travel under ice for many minutes at a time, finding their way back to breathing holes through some combination of memory, sound, and faint light from above. Diving deep also makes whales relatively safe from many predators. The deep is too dark, too cold, too pressurized for most attackers. A sperm whale's only major predator in some areas is the orca, and even then, only the largest, most coordinated orcapods can challenge a sperm whale, and only in shallow waters. Some whales are believed to sleep during periods of suspended deep diving. Sperm whales have been observed in vertical, motionless groups at depths of around 15 meters, drifting slowly downward without swimming. They appear to enter a quiet, deep sleep state for short periods. The exact mechanisms of cetacean sleep are still being studied. In the deep ocean, the whale is alone with its world. The species that visit the deep, sperm whales, beaked whales, pilot whales, are perhaps the most unknown of all whales. Their lives unfold in waters humans cannot easily visit. They are visible to us only briefly, between dives, when they pause to breathe and to listen at the surface. Each dive carries the whale through gradients of pressure, temperature, and light. From the warm sunlit surface, through the cool blue twilight, into the cold black depths and back. The dive is a slow vertical journey through different layers of the ocean, each with its own creatures, currents, and silences. After many years of diving, an old whale's body bears the marks of countless descents. Scares, calluses, blubber thickness, lung capacity, all reflect a lifetime spent crossing the threshold between air and deep. The body of an old sperm whale is, in a sense, a living record of every dive it has ever made. That is the deep dive. A breath above, a long descent, a slow hunt in darkness, a patient ascent, a new breath, repeated day after day, year after year, across a long whale life. The deep ocean has been their home and their hunting ground for tens of millions of years, longer than any human history could measure. Tonight, somewhere in the dark deep, a sperm whale is descending. Its great square head pushes downward through cold water. Its heart slows, its lungs collapse, its clicks reach out into the darkness. Far below, an unknown squid moves through the black. The whale has been doing this since long before our civilization began. Among all the creatures that have ever lived, the blue whale has the largest body, the largest tongue, the largest mouth, and the largest heart. Its physiology is at the extreme edge of what biological tissue can sustain. Tonight we will move slowly through the gentle scale of this magnificent being. An adult blue whale is between 24 and 30 meters in length. The largest reliably measured individual was a female of slightly more than 33 meters. Such a whale weighs between 100 and 200 tons. That is more than 30 adult African elephants on a single body. The heart of a blue whale weighs around 180 kilograms, roughly the size of a small motorcycle. It pumps about 200 liters of blood per beat. The aorta, the great vessel leaving the heart, is wide enough that a small child could nearly fit inside. The vessels run through the whale's body in a vast circulatory system. The heartbeat of a resting blue whale at the surface is around 8 to 10 beats per minute. During a deep dive, it can drop to as low as 2 beats per minute. When the whale ascends and resumes vigorous swimming, the heart rate accelerates again. The slow, powerful pulse of a blue whale is one of the most remarkable rhythms in the natural world. Each blue whale's tongue weighs as much as an adult elephant, around 3,000 kilograms. The mouth, when fully open, can hold 90 tons of water. After taking in this volume, the whale closes its mouth and pushes the water out through the baleen, retaining the krill and small fish behind. The whole motion takes only a few seconds. The tongue, despite its size, is remarkably flexible. It can move forward, push the water out through the baleen, then return to its resting position deep within the mouth. The fibrous fatty tissue of the tongue is also unusual. It can survive the impact of a lunge feed when the whale rapidly accelerates and engulfs an enormous volume of water. A blue whale eats about 3,000 to 4,000 kilograms of krill each day during the feeding season. That is the equivalent of 100 million krill. The whale lunge feeds many times per hour, taking in enormous mouthfuls. Over a few months in the feeding grounds, the whale can gain tens of tons of body mass, fat reserves that will sustain it during migration. The krill are tiny shrimp-like creatures, only a few centimeters long. They live in vast swarms in the cold waters of polar and subpolar oceans. A single krill is small enough to fit on a fingernail, yet the swarms can extend for miles and contain trillions of individuals. The blue whale exists because the krill exists in such abundance. Newborn blue whale calves are already enormous. At birth, a calf weighs around 2,500 kilograms, about the same as a small car, and measures 7 meters in length. The calf is born tail first in warm tropical waters. Within minutes, the mother nudges the newborn to the surface for its first breath. Mother's milk for a blue whale is extraordinarily rich. It contains around 50% fat, almost 10 times richer than human milk. The calf nurses many times per day, consuming around 250 liters of milk daily. It can gain nearly 100 kilograms of body weight per day. By age 1, the calf is already half the length of its mother. After about 7 months, the calf is weaned. By that time, it has grown to around 15 meters in length and weighs nearly 20 tons. It accompanies its mother on the long northward migration to the cold feeding grounds, where it learns to feed on its own. After the first migration, mother and calf gradually separate, though sometimes they remain near each other for years. The lifespan of a blue whale is estimated at 80 to 90 years, possibly longer. Determining age in cetaceans is difficult, since they leave no easily counted year markers like tree rings. Researchers use the wax in the ear canal, a thick plug of accumulated material, to count layers, much like counting tree rings, to estimate age. Bowhead whales, however, may live even longer. Some bowheads have been documented at over 200 years old. Old harpoon points found embedded in their flesh have been dated to the 19th century, indicating that the individuals were already adult during the early days of commercial whaling. Among mammals, only some species of tortoises and Rugai rockfish exceed bowhead longevity. The sperm whales also live long, perhaps 70 to 80 years. Females tend to live longer than males. Old female sperm whales are often the matriarchs of their pods, leading younger relatives through the slow social rhythms of family life. Their accumulated knowledge of the ocean, of food sources, of dangers, is passed down through pod culture. Most other large whales have lifespans of 50 to 70 years. Humpbacks, fin whales, and gray whales fall into this range. Smaller cetaceans tend to live shorter lives, orcas around 50 to 80 years for females, less for males. Dolphins, depending on species, live 30 to 50 years on average. Despite their large bodies, whales have low metabolic rates compared to land mammals. The phenomenon is called gigantothermy. Their large size means a smaller surface area to volume ratio, so they lose body heat slowly. Combined with thick blubber and efficient circulation, they maintain warm body temperatures in cold seas with relatively little energy expenditure. The brain of a blue whale weighs around 7 kilograms, 5 times the weight of a human brain. The sperm whale's brain is even larger, around 8 kilograms, the largest brain ever known on Earth. Yet brain size does not directly translate to intelligence. The structure, the folding, the cellular organization all matter. Whale brains are highly developed in regions related to social behavior, emotion, and acoustic processing. The skin of large whales is remarkably resilient. It is thick, smooth, and contains few hair follicles. Most large whales have only a few stiff hairs around the mouth, vestigial remnants of their land mammal ancestors. The skin is constantly shedding and renewing, helping prevent the buildup of barnacles and other parasites. Whales are sensitive to touch, especially around the head and the genitals. Mothers and calves often touch each other gently with flukes or flippers. Adult whales sometimes rub against each other in social interactions. Tactile contact is an important part of cetacean social life, often as significant as their acoustic communication. Whale eyes are roughly the size of grapefruits in the largest species. They have wide pupils and can see in dim underwater light. Their eyes are placed on the sides of the head, providing a wide field of view but limited binocular vision. Whales rely much more on hearing than on sight, especially toothed species who hunt in dark waters. The lungs of a large whale are proportionally smaller than those of a human, but far more efficient. With each breath, a whale exchanges around 90% of the air in its lungs, a level humans never reach. The whale also extracts more oxygen from each breath due to higher blood volumes and red blood cell concentrations. Reproduction is slow in blue whales. A female does not reach sexual maturity until around age 10. Once mature, she may give birth to a single calf every 2 or 3 years. Pregnancy lasts about 11 months. The slow reproductive rate makes blue whale populations recover slowly from past hunting losses. During the 20th century, the blue whale population was reduced by industrial whaling from perhaps 300,000 individuals to fewer than 2,000. The hunting was largely stopped in the 1960s. Since then, the population has begun to recover slowly. Today, there are estimated to be 10 to 25,000 blue whales worldwide, distributed across the major oceans. As each blue whale alive today is, in a sense, a living continuation of an ancient lineage. Each carries the body plan of millions of years of cetacean evolution. Each carries the memory of countless ancestors who survived ice ages, predators, hunting, climate shifts, and ocean changes. Each is irreplaceable. The sound of a blue whale's heartbeat can sometimes be detected by underwater microphones from very close range. The slow, deep pulse, every 6 or 8 seconds at rest, is one of the most distinctive sounds of the cetacean world. It is the largest heartbeat ever produced by any animal. That is the largest heart, beating slowly deep beneath the surface, sustained on krill carried by ancient ocean currents, persisting from generation to generation. The blue whale is the largest creature this planet has ever known, and it is gentle, slow, mostly silent, mostly alone in the vast blue places of the world. Tonight, somewhere in the deep blue, a blue whale is gliding through cold water. Its 180-kilogram heart beats slowly. Its baleen filters the krill of the season. Its calf, perhaps, swims alongside. The species has survived countless ages. It is still here, still gentle, still extraordinary. The toothed whales, Odontocetes, are a diverse and fascinating group. They include the great sperm whales, the orcas, the dolphins, the narwhals, and the belugas. They share several traits: teeth instead of baleen, echolocation, often complex social structures, and brains that are large in proportion to their body size. Sperm whales are the largest toothed whales. Adult males can reach 20 meters and weigh over 50 tons. Females are smaller, around 11 meters. Sperm whales have peg-like teeth in their lower jaw, about 20 pairs of conical teeth. The upper jaw has matching sockets but no functional teeth. The teeth are used for grasping squid, the whale's primary prey. Sperm whales live in family pods. Females and their young remain together in stable units across many decades. Adult males live mostly alone, traveling between pods during the breeding season. The pod is led by an elder matriarch, a female who knows the deep ocean, the squid hunting grounds, the safe routes through different seas. Each sperm whale pod has its own dialect of clicking patterns. The codas, short, distinctive sequences of clicks, are exchanged among pod members and are different from the codas of other pods. Different pods sometimes meet at sea and exchange codas, like greetings between cultures. Researchers can identify pods by listening to their codas alone. But orcas, sometimes called killer whales, are the largest dolphins. They reach up to 9 meters in length. They are predators with no natural enemies at the very top of the marine food chain. They live in tight family groups called pods, often led by a long-lived female matriarch. Different orca populations specialize in different prey. Some focus on fish, some on seals, some on small whales, some on large whales. The specializations are passed down through pod culture, often unchanged for generations. A pod that hunts seals will not switch to hunting fish, even if fish are abundant. The cultural specialization is remarkably stable. Resident orca pods in the eastern North Pacific feed almost exclusively on salmon, especially Chinook salmon. They follow the salmon migrations, returning to the same regions in the same seasons each year. Different resident pods stay separate. Even when they overlap in space, they recognize each other but rarely socialize. Transient orcas, by contrast, hunt marine mammals, seals, sea lions, porpoises, even other small whales. They travel in smaller groups, communicate less vocally during hunts, and cover larger areas. The two ecotypes, residents and transients, diverge in language, behavior, and even genetics, despite sharing the same waters. Offshore orcas live in the deep open ocean in less studied populations. They feed mostly on fish and sharks, including some quite large shark species. They travel in slightly larger groups than transients, but smaller than residents. Each orca ecotype represents a different cultural lineage with its own way of living in the same ocean. Dolphins are the most diverse and abundant family of toothed whales. There are over 40 species. The bottlenose dolphin is the most familiar, found in coastal waters around the world. Common dolphins live in large schools in temperate seas. Spinner dolphins are known for their acrobatic leaping. Dolphins are extraordinarily intelligent. They have been documented solving complex puzzles, recognizing themselves in mirrors, using tools, and learning behaviors from each other. Their social bonds are strong and lasting. They have been observed helping injured pod members, supporting them at the surface so they can breathe. River dolphins live in some of the world's great rivers, far from the sea. They are descended from oceanic ancestors who, millions of years ago, moved into freshwater systems. The Amazon river dolphin is pink, with a long beak and an unfused neck that allows it to turn its head. The Ganges river dolphin is nearly blind and navigates by echolocation alone. The narwhal is one of the strangest of the whales. The males have a long spiraled tusk that protrudes from the upper jaw. The tusk is, in fact, a highly elongated tooth, growing through the lip and extending up to 3 meters. For centuries, narwhal tusks were sold in Europe as unicorn horns, fueling royal collections and medieval legends. The function of the narwhal tusk is debated. It may be a sensory organ, with millions of nerve endings detecting changes in water temperature, pressure, or salinity. It may be used in male displays for dominance and mate choice. It may be used to stun fish during hunting. Most likely, it serves several purposes at once. Bell belugas are pale white whales of the Arctic and subarctic. They are extremely social, often gathering in groups of dozens or hundreds. They are also remarkably vocal, chirping, whistling, clicking, and producing what almost sound like words. Sailors once called them sea canaries because of their varied vocalizations. Belugas have an unusual ability among cetaceans. They can move their heads relative to their bodies. Most cetaceans have fused neck vertebrae, which makes them streamlined but stiff. Belugas have unfused neck vertebrae, allowing them to turn their heads and look around. This gives them an unusually expressive appearance. The pilot whale is a medium-sized toothed whale that lives in tight family pods. Long-finned pilot whales prefer cooler waters. Short-finned pilot whales live in tropical and subtropical seas. Both are highly social, with pod sizes of dozens or hundreds. They feed on squid and other deep-sea prey. False killer whales, despite the name, are not closely related to orcas. They are large dolphins reaching about 6 meters in length, dark in color, with a slender shape. They are highly social and travel in large pods. Their populations are scattered across the warm oceans of the world. Pygmy and dwarf sperm whales are smaller relatives of the great sperm whale, around 2 to 3 meters in length. They are quiet, reclusive, and rarely seen. They live in deep waters, surface briefly, then dive again. Their behavior is poorly documented compared to other cetaceans. Beaked whales are a family of mid-sized toothed whales, mostly oceanic and deep diving. There are over 20 species, many of them poorly studied. They are most often known from stranded animals or brief sightings. New species are still being discovered. Each is a small mystery in the great cetacean family. Risso's dolphins are highly distinctive, gray-bodied with extensive scarring across the skin, the result of social interactions with other rissos. The scars build up over time and become more prominent in older animals. Despite their tough appearance, they are gentle and live in close-knit pods. The Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphin is a separate species from the common Atlantic bottlenose. They are smaller, with subtler coloration, and live in the warm waters of the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. They have been observed using sponges as tools to protect their snouts while foraging on the sea floor. Many toothed whales engage in cooperative hunting. Orcas surround schools of fish, working together to herd them into tight balls before feeding. Dolphins coordinate to drive fish onto beaches, then partially strand themselves to grab the prey. Sperm whales hunt squid through what may be coordinated group descents into the deep. The brain-to-body ratio of toothed whales is among the highest of any animal, comparable to or exceeding humans in some species. Their brains have unusually well-developed regions associated with social cognition, emotion, and acoustic processing. They are, by most measures, among the most cognitively complex creatures on Earth. Each species of toothed whale has its own way of living. its own social structure, its own sound. Together they fill the ocean with a richness of behavior and culture that humans are only beginning to understand. Each pod, each population carries traditions developed over thousands of years. That is the family of toothed whales, hunters of the deep, singers and clickers, builders of culture, navigators by sound, parents and pod members. They have refined their lives across tens of millions of years. Tonight, somewhere in the dark blue waters, a sperm whale is clicking, an orca is calling, a dolphin is whistling. The toothed whales are awake, communicating, traveling, hunting. And we leave the toothed whales gently to their slow and complex lives. Now we move to their cousins, the great filter feeders, the baleen whales, who built their existence around a different ancient strategy. Baleen whales are filter feeders. Instead of teeth, they have plates of a substance called baleen, flexible keratin plates that hang from the upper jaw. The plates form a sieve, allowing water to flow out while trapping krill, copepods, or small fish. It is a feeding strategy unlike any other in the mammal world. Baleen is made of keratin, the same substance as human fingernails and rhinoceros horns. The plates grow continuously throughout the whale's life, replacing themselves as they wear down. Each plate is bristled at the inner edge, where the bristles overlap to form the actual filter surface. There are about a dozen species of baleen whales. They include the blue whale, the fin whale, the humpback, the gray whale, the right whales, the bowhead, the mink, the sei, the brides, and a few others. Each has slightly different baleen and slightly different feeding habits. Each is adapted to a particular kind of prey. The blue whale and other rorquals lunge feed. The whale accelerates toward a krill swarm, opens its mouth wide, and engulfs an enormous volume of water, sometimes 90 tons in a single gulp. The water is then pushed out through the baleen, leaving the krill behind. The whole process takes only a few seconds, but it consumes much of the whale's daily energy. During lunge feeding, the whale's throat expands enormously. Long pleats called ventral grooves run along the underside of the throat, allowing it to balloon out to many times its normal size. The pleats are why rorquals can engulf such vast volumes. Without the pleats, the throat could not expand far enough. Humpback whales feed in many ways. They lunge feed, but they also use a remarkable cooperative technique called bubble net feeding. A small group of humpbacks circles below a school of fish, with one whale releasing a stream of bubbles in a spiral pattern. The bubbles rise to the surface, forming a cylindrical net that traps the fish. The whales then surge upward through the net, mouths open, taking in the concentrated prey. Different humpback populations have different bubble net traditions. Some use larger nets, some use smaller. Some involve specific roles for different whales. The technique is learned from older pod members, passed down through generations. It is a clear case of culturally transmitted feeding behavior in cetaceans. Right whales and bowheads are skim feeders. Instead of lunging, they swim slowly through the water with their mouths partly open. As they move forward, Water flows in through the front of the mouth around the long baleen plates and out the sides of the mouth. The plates trap copepods and krill from the steady flow. The baleen of right whales is unusually long, over 2 meters. The long plates are well suited to filtering small copepods. Right whales eat almost continuously when they are in their feeding grounds, swimming with mouths half open for hours, processing enormous volumes of water through their long baleen filters. Bowhead whales also skim feed. Their baleen is the longest of any whale, up to 4 meters in length. The bowhead's enormous skull, which is up to 1/3 of its body length, accommodates this massive baleen filter. They feed on small copepods and krill in the cold polar waters of the Arctic. Gray whales feed in a different way altogether. They are bottom feeders. They swim along the seafloor, turning sideways and pushing their heads into the soft mud. Through filtering and sucking action, they consume amphipods and small invertebrates from the sediment. Most gray whales feed on the right side, leaving distinctive scars on that side of the head. Minke whales lunge feed, similar to blue whales, but on a smaller scale. They feed on krill, herring, capelin, and other small fish, depending on location. They are often the most abundant baleen whale in many regions, found in waters from the tropics to the polar seas. Sei whales primarily skim feed, but can also lunge feed when needed. They are sleek, fast swimmers. They prefer the deep open ocean, far from coasts. Their feeding is opportunistic. They take advantage of whatever dense prey aggregations they encounter, switching between styles as needed. The bride's whales live in tropical and subtropical waters. They feed on small fish, krill, and copepods. They lunge feed often near the surface, sometimes in cooperation with seabirds and predatory fish that drive prey into tight balls. The whales surge through these prey balls, mouths open. Krill is the foundation of much baleen whale feeding. The cold polar oceans, both north and south, support enormous krill populations. The krill themselves feed on phytoplankton, single-celled algae that turn sunlight into the base of the entire ocean food web. Without phytoplankton, no krill. Without krill, no great whales. The baleen whale's migrations follow the seasonal abundance of krill. In the polar summers, krill populations explode in the cold, productive waters. The whales travel north or south to feast. As the polar season ends, the whales depart for warmer waters, where they breed and live more sparingly until the next feeding season. Some baleen whales feed on small fish rather than krill. Humpbacks often target herring, capelin, sand lance, and other schooling fish. Fin whales eat both krill and small fish depending on location. Brides and sei whales are similarly flexible. The diet of each species is shaped by what is locally abundant. Filter feeding is highly efficient at large scales. By processing enormous volumes of water for many small prey, baleen whales can sustain bodies far larger than carnivores who hunt individual prey. The strategy allowed the largest body sizes ever achieved on Earth: the blue whale, the fin whale, the bowhead. The relationship between whales and their food has evolved over millions of years. As polar oceans cooled and krill populations grew, the baleen whales grew larger. As ocean conditions changed, different feeding strategies developed. lunge feeding, skim feeding, bottom feeding. Each is a refinement of an ancient theme. The filter feeding leaves whales vulnerable to ocean changes. If krill populations decline due to climate change, ocean acidification, or other pressures, the great whales suffer. The largest creatures on Earth depend on the smallest. The slow giants depend on the fast multiplying tiny crustaceans of the cold seas. In their feeding grounds, baleen whales sometimes congregate in large numbers. Hundreds of fin whales gathered near upwellings off the coast of California, dozens of humpbacks at a time in Alaska, vast aggregations of blue whales in the Antarctic feeding grounds during peak summer. The cold, productive waters become temporary cities of whales. After feeding, the whales process their meals slowly. The thick fats and proteins of krill and small fish are absorbed and stored as blubber. The blubber will sustain the whale through long migrations and breeding periods. The fats also store information, pollutants, isotope ratios, even diet history. Researchers can read a whale's life from its blubber. Many baleen whales feed in close proximity to each other without competition. Different species prefer different prey or different feeding methods. A blue whale lunge feeding on krill, a humpback bubble netting fish, a fin whale chasing herring, all in the same feeding ground, all coexisting peacefully. The cold seas are abundant enough for all. Some seabirds and fish associate closely with feeding baleen whales. Birds dive onto the surface schools of fish that whales drive upward. Smaller fish gather in the wake of feeding whales, eating the leftovers. The feeding whale is not just a consumer, but the focal point of a larger feeding community. Baleen whales also help fertilize the ocean. Their droppings, what scientists politely call whale poop, contain enormous quantities of nutrients, especially iron. The nutrients support the growth of phytoplankton, which produces oxygen and forms the base of the food web. The whales who eat the krill help create more krill in a slow loop of nutrient cycling. That is the world of baleen whales, filter feeders of the cold seas, lunge feeders, skim feeders, bottom feeders, each species refined for a particular niche, all sustained by the krill, the copepods, the small fish of productive waters, all maintaining the slow ancient rhythms of feeding, fasting, and migration. Tonight, somewhere in the cold, productive seas, a humpback is rising through a krill swarm. Somewhere else, a right whale is skim feeding through a slick of copepods. The great filters of the ocean continue their patient work, as they have for tens of millions of years. For as long as humans have lived near the sea, we have been aware of whales. We have watched them rise from the water. We have heard their songs through the hulls of our boats. We have feared them, hunted them, worshipped them, befriended them. Tonight we will travel slowly through the long, complex relationship between our species and theirs. Indigenous peoples of the Arctic, the Inuit, the Inupiat, the Yupik, have hunted bowhead whales for thousands of years. The hunts were small in scale, deeply ceremonial, and central to the survival of communities in regions where almost nothing else grows. A single whale could feed a village for an entire year. And in Polynesian cultures across the Pacific, Whales were honored as messengers between the worlds, carriers of ancestor spirits. Stories of whales saving shipwrecked sailors are found across the islands. The relationship was sacred, not commercial. Whales were treated with respect, sometimes named, often regarded as kin. Norse and Icelandic peoples wrote about whales in their old sagas. Some whales were considered guardian spirits, bringing fortune to fishermen. Others were feared as monstrous. The sagas mention specific whales by name, much as one might mention a notable person, creatures with character, history, and influence. Industrial whaling is a much more recent phenomenon. It began in earnest in the 17th century, with European ships hunting bowhead whales in the Arctic. Whale oil was used for lighting, for soap, for industrial lubrication. Whale baleen was used for corsets and umbrella ribs. The hunt was profitable, ruthless, and rapid. By the 19th century, American whaling was at its height. Sperm whales were hunted across the Pacific for their oil, used in fine candles, machine lubrication, and pharmaceuticals. The novel Moby Dick was written in this era and gave the world its most famous literary portrait of whaling and of a whale. In the late 19th and 20th centuries, the development of explosive harpoons and large factory ships made whaling industrially efficient on a vast scale. Many populations of great whales were driven to the brink of extinction. The blue whale population fell by 99%. The right whale almost disappeared from the North Atlantic. By the 1960s, scientific concern and public awareness began to shift the discussion. Recordings of humpback whale songs reached millions of listeners and helped redefine public perception. Whales were no longer just resources to be harvested. They were intelligent, social, sensitive creatures with rich lives. In 1986, the International Whaling Commission imposed a moratorium on commercial whaling. Most nations stopped industrial whaling. A few continued for research or under traditional cultural exemptions, but the scale of hunting dropped dramatically. The moratorium has remained in effect for nearly 4 decades. Since the moratorium, many whale populations have begun to recover. Humpback whales have rebounded strongly in some regions, returning to numbers approaching their pre-whaling levels. Blue whales are recovering more slowly due to their long generation times and sensitivity to climate change. Right whales remain critically endangered. Modern threats to whales are different from old harpoons. Ship strikes are a major cause of whale deaths in busy coastal waters. Entanglement in fishing gear injures or kills thousands of whales annually. Plastic pollution accumulates in the gut of feeding whales. Underwater noise from ships and industry interferes with communication and navigation. Climate change is affecting whales as it affects all marine life. Warming oceans shift krill populations, force whales to alter their migration patterns, and reduce the productivity of polar feeding grounds. The relationship between whales and their food is being slowly disrupted in ways we are only beginning to understand. Conservation efforts continue. International agreements, marine protected areas, ship traffic management, fishing gear modifications, and noise reduction measures all aim to protect whale populations. Some efforts are working, others struggle against economic and political pressures. The recovery of cetaceans is a long, uneven, ongoing project. Scientific research has expanded enormously since the moratorium. Photo identification catalogs track individual whales across years and decades. Hydrophone networks listen to whale calls across ocean basins. Drone studies measure body condition. Satellite tags follow migrations. Each whale becomes, in a sense, an individual in a long-term study. Citizen science contributes too. Whale-watching boats around the world help researchers track populations and behaviors. Volunteers identify individual whales from photographs. Recordings are crowdsourced from many platforms. The slow accumulation of data is helping us understand cetacean lives in ways earlier generations could not. Whale watching has become a major industry in many regions, replacing whaling as a source of income. Communities in Iceland, Norway, Mexico, Canada, and elsewhere have transitioned from hunting whales to showing them to tourists. The economic value of a living whale observed many times often exceeds the value of a single hunted whale. Some indigenous communities continue traditional subsistence whaling with strict quotas and ceremonial practices. The Inupiat of Alaska hunt a small number of bowhead whales each year. The Faroese hunt pilot whales in their traditional grindadrap. These hunts are subject to ongoing debate about their cultural significance and environmental sustainability. Whales play a remarkable role in marine ecosystems beyond simply consuming food. Their movements between deep and surface waters help mix nutrients. Their fertilization of the surface ocean supports phytoplankton blooms. Their carcasses, when whales die naturally, fall to the deep ocean floor, where they support entire ecosystems for decades. A single whale fall, the body of a dead whale arriving on the deep sea floor, supports a succession of communities. First, large scavengers feed on the soft tissue, then smaller creatures move into the bones. Finally, specialized bacteria break down the lipids in the skeleton, supporting unique chemosynthetic communities. The entire process can last for decades. Whales are some of the most studied wild animals on Earth, and yet much remains unknown. New behaviors are observed each year. New populations are discovered. The full extent of cetacean intelligence, communication, social structure, and culture is only beginning to be appreciated by science. Whales feature heavily in modern art, music, and literature. Recordings of their songs have inspired symphonies. Their images appear in countless books, films, and visual works. The whale has become a symbol of the natural world's vastness, vulnerability, and ancient wisdom, a creature that connects us to the deeper rhythms of the planet. Some philosophers and ethicists argue that whales should be granted personhood, a legal and moral status closer to that of humans than of property. The argument rests on their cognitive complexity, their social bonds, their long lives, their cultures. The debate continues, but it reflects a profound shift in how some humans see whales. Today, in many oceans, whale populations are slowly returning. Humpbacks sing along coasts that were silent for a century. Blue whales feed in places where they had vanished. Right whales raise calves in waters where they were nearly lost. The recovery is fragile, partial, and ongoing. but it represents one of the most important conservation stories of our time. In the great oceans tonight, whales continue their slow lives. Mothers feed calves, pods travel through cold currents, songs ripple through deep water, hunts unfold in dark depths, migrations cross hemispheres. The rhythms have continued through millennia and continue still, despite the changes humans have brought. And in some sense, the relationship between humans and whales is also recovering. We hunted them for centuries. Now we mostly protect them. We feared them. Now we listen to their songs. We are learning to share the ocean rather than to dominate it. The shift is incomplete, but it is real. That is the long story of whales and humanity. From sacred companions to industrial resources to creatures of mystery and wonder, the relationship has been deep, often dark, slowly turning toward something gentler. Tonight, somewhere in the great blue, a whale rises to breathe. Somewhere else, a person watches and is moved. The story continues. But let us leave the whales now to their slow, ancient rhythms. They will continue without us. They have continued through changes far greater than any we have seen. The deep blue holds them. The cold seas feed them. The songs travel between them. They are still here, breathing, singing, diving, swimming through the great patient oceans of the world. We have come a long way tonight, from the smallest dolphins to the largest blue whales, from the warm tropical breeding lagoons to the cold polar feeding seas, from the deepest dives of sperm whales to the surface songs of humpbacks. The cetacean world has shown us only a small portion of itself, and even that small portion has been more than the mind can hold. The whales we have visited have not noticed us. They will continue their slow lives whether we watch or not. New calves will keep being born in warm lagoons. Old whales will keep diving into the deep. Migrations will keep crossing hemispheres. Songs will keep evolving. Nothing about tonight has hurried any of them. But somewhere in the ocean tonight, a humpback is singing the same notes that have been sung with variations for hundreds of thousands of years. The song travels through the deep, dark water, fading slowly, reaching whatever ear may receive it. The whale has been singing this kind of song for far longer than humans have existed. If your eyes are still open, allow them to close now. There is nothing left to see that has not already been shown. The whales will be here tomorrow and the night after and 1,000 years from tomorrow. They are not in any hurry to be witnessed. You can come back anytime. They will be waiting, patient as ever. Let the slow rhythm of your breath continue, in and out. The whales breathe too, in cycles much slower than ours, down into the dark, up into the air, down again, up again. They have been breathing this way for 50 million years. Tonight, somewhere in the patient sea, a whale is breathing. You are part of the same long mammalian rhythm. Thank you for spending this night with the Circadian Institute. If this journey helped you rest, please consider subscribing. It allows us to keep building these slow, deep visits to the quieter places of the natural world. New videos arrive each week, always at this same patient pace, always meant for your sleep. Until we meet again, The whales will keep traveling the great oceans. Songs will keep moving through the dark, deep water. Calves will keep being born and growing. The cycle that has continued for 50 million years will continue tonight and tomorrow and into a future longer than any of us will see. Good night from the Circadian Institute. Sleep deeply. Sleep well. The whales are still gliding through the deep blue. The songs are still rippling through the cold seas. The great hearts are still beating slowly far below, and tomorrow when you wake, all of this will still be true. Good night.